welcome to Saving People Queering Things, the Supernatural Rewatch podcast where we talk about ghosts, road trips, and free will through every episode of the TV series Supernatural.
Today, we're exploring the season 3 premiere, The Magnificent Seven, through the theme of family. I'm Noah, one of your co-hosts, and with me today are Abigail and Elayna. How are y'all doing?
Hello,
everyone.
Did y'all enjoy this episode?
Stoked.
I thought it was pretty great.
Season
3 starting off hard.
Honestly, we're hitting the ground like running, and I love it.
Yeah, season 3 is gonna be, it's a journey.
This is such a weird episode tonally too. It's like we're up and we're down, and we're happy and we're sad, and
so many different
We
emotions.
run the whole gamut of human emotion through this episode.
The actors really put in their effort.
Yeah, they definitely got paid for this one. Not that they don't for the other ones, but you know what I mean.
they're hitting their stride. Now we're hitting season 3. Like we got a real solid cast now, and they really shine. Not just like Jensen and Jared, but like the whole cast really shines. Bobby is who I was referring to in that comment.
I'm trying real hard to remember.
Bobby, I realized he is the first line of season 3.
What was it?
He says, "Hey Sam," as he gets on the phone with him.
Solid.
Yeah. Starting off strong.
Jim Beaver.
We love Jim Beaver.
Yeah, this is always a Jim Beaver stan cast.
So we're going to jump right in with our series recap. So here's what you missed on the road so far. Elayna, you ready for us?
Count me in.
3, 2, 1, go.
So here's what you missed on the road so far. Sam and Dean are two brothers who went to go find their dad, and then they found him, and it turns out that he was hunting a demon, and then he ended up killing that demon to save Dean, and made a weird deal with a crossroads demon, and then Sam turned out to have all these weird powers, and then he tried to figure out those powers, and then he died, and it was really stressful, and then Dean defeated the demon, and there was like a happy moment with John, even though John is terrible, and they have to move on with their lives. Sam
was back to life.
Oh yeah, Sam comes back to life in the end.
Sam's still dead. Nope.
Sam's still dead.
Confirmed.
That was a hard task, recapping 2 full seasons. So kudos to you.
I kind of blacked out there around the 15-second mark. I don't really know what happened after that.
Stuff and things
is what always happens.
Plot points. So Noah, you're going to take us through this episode, season 3, episode 1. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so all the demons got out of hell, right? Shit. So the boys try to go find them all. They're gonna find all the demons. Okay. They track down some pesky demons that turn out to be the 7 deadly sins and mess them up a whole lot more than they thought they would. Sam gets his ass handed to him and then saved by a mysterious person who's played by a famous person. So like, ooh, who saw that coming? But Bobby helps out a lot. Bobby kicks ass trying to help him. Dean gets cocky and Sam won't let him die.
Nice. You came together. You got the point of the episode.
It is now time for this week's theme discussion. And today we are going to be looking at this episode through the theme of family, as it is a kickoff to a season.
Always kickoff to topic. Our new family.
Oh.
Part of the podcast family.
Well, podcast family.
My heart just grew a couple sizes. That was nice.
Wholesome. I thought this was a fun theme for this episode. Family's always great with the brothers and Bobby.
It's so much the core of the show.
And this season, I feel like too, season 2, we start off with an episode that is like the Winchesters. It's like Sam and Dean and John. Whereas what I really like in this episode is that it's still family, but it's Bobby. It's Bobby there. Like Bobby's there. And Bobby's emotionally present in the episode.
Which isn't something you never see from John.
Yeah.
True.
We're kicking off season 3 great here with some John slander.
Yeah,
right off
you
the
had
bat.
to know. We couldn't even get 2 minutes into discussing the episode.
We said the theme is
John.
family. Fuck John.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bobby's a better dad. But Bobby Bobby, his first, Elayna, you pointed out before we started recording that Bobby's the first line of this episode. And that's hi Sam. Hey Sam. And it's him calling to check in on how they're doing.
He's such a wholesome ass individual, and he really cares for the boys. and wants the best for them in every way.
And what's nice too is that he isn't just that loving character with just the boys. This is one of the first times where you get to see Bobby like interacting with somebody that's sort of outside their circle, because we have, oh my gosh, what's his name?
Isaac and Tamara.
Isaac, there we go.
And
Isaac and Tamara, who are just impeccable characters, and I may or may not be forever salty that this is the only
Does she not come back?
She doesn't, and I'm so sorry to tell you that, but I have to mention it because it just she was right there, and she was so good, and they set her up with such potential, and then
they do that to Black women a lot in the show.
They do.
It's really crappy. It's really crappy.
It's terrible.
Because Supernatural is terrible to women in general, especially in these early seasons. And then if you're a woman of color, particularly, it's like worse. You get one episode, even if you're a really phenomenal character, and a character with like a lot of potential and depth, like Tamara or Cassie or Missouri. Like,
don't get me started on Missouri, because we will be here for way longer than either of our internet connections can handle.
But I think that is like an interesting point that you make, because this is, I mean, we've seen little bits of like the hunter networks as kind of these like extended families of hunters. But one thing I noticed is this is, I think, one of the first times that we meet like a couple that hunt together.
Yes. It's very important. Like, that's, I think, really pivotal for Sam and Dean to see. And especially that line where Isaac's like, the family that slays together, and Sam's just like, I hear that. And you can just see, like, Sam doesn't get to have a lot of joy, but you can tell that he hears that line and he's just like, somebody gets it.
It's kind of redemptive. Like, he's spent the first 2 seasons being like, well, I guess I'm not gonna have a family, because every time I get close to someone and they're not in the hunting life, they die, or they're a monster, like, or they're like one of the monsters we have to hunt and they die. Like, he's had really bad luck with that. He either has to leave, they die, or they're, a werewolf is currently his 3 love interests so far in the show. So, like, him to get to see that there's this couple, and yes, their like story is marked with tragedy, but they're also, they care about each other.
They're an important symbol for him in his life. So that's worth seeing, at least.
Especially through the theme family.
Well, I think too, what you were saying, Abigail, just that it's really nice to have this be this particular season's opening discussion, just because so much of seasons 1 and 2 was just getting us to meet Sam and Dean and getting us to fall in love with them. And I feel like season 3 onward is where you start to get these really deeply profound messages of family beyond people that you're related to. And that's like a through line of the whole show that really, it feels like it starts here.
I agree. Establishing Bobby as one of the key members is essential in that.
And he is the skilled and experienced hunter in this scenario. He's the one that figures out the case. Like, they let him take the lead on this case. Like, when Bobby says, this is what we're doing, they listen.
Yeah.
Both Sam and Dean and Tamara also listen. Yeah, they're establishing that like the repercussions of what happened at the end of season 2 are going to be handled by them as a family unit. Agreed.
And not necessarily just them, but not just the Winchester family and their surrounding, but like the whole Hunter extended family is because everybody's they give them, I think Isaac and Tamara give him a little shit at the beginning, like, you guys are the ones that caused this problem, and he's like, yeah. I know, but we're trying.
Also, okay, so we're gonna come back to that when we get to like lore and stuff later, but I have questions about how they know. Like, they didn't open the gate. They literally didn't open the gate.
That's true. It's Jake.
Jake opened the gate. Like, Sam, legitimately, this is not on them. I don't know why they're taking all the responsibility for it. They happen to be at the middle of it, but like, Jake opens the gate.
That's a plot hole that I never noticed until being today years old.
Sure, it's a plot hole. I think it's just a really interesting look at their perspective on the situation, how they're taking responsibility for it, even though like, this is all the demons. This is all the demons doing. Like, this is, he just got what he wanted. He just kind of wins in this scenario despite being dead. But like, they are still convinced that because they're at the center of it, that it's their responsibility, even though it's not.
I mean, more so referring to the fact that how do they,
I don't know how they know.
No, because the only people that were present
Bobby and Ellen.
Yeah, Bobby and Ellen, and that's
Jake.
it. And Jake is dead. So it's like
There's literally no one else who could have told them. Like, how did they? And like everyone at the, even if something had gotten through, like nobody survived at the Roadhouse.
that's true too.
So if the demon had told if anything had been tied to the Winchesters,
Mm.
unless it's just like one of those things
What
where
if-
like rumors spread,
yeah, we're like, because I feel
they were
like
there. They were there, so it
I-
must
they
be
were
their
there.
fault.
I think it's the demons. All the demons that got out saw them as they left, and they know the Winchesters, they know John, and they know how shitty he is, so they fucking hate him.
And
like
John
we
was
all
in
should.
hell.
Yeah, because
So
he was there.
they're
And
going,
so they
oh,
all
we
came
have to-
out. So whenever all these hunters are coming across all these demons, they're being like, "Whoa, where the fuck did you come from?" And they're like, "Oh, you can thank the Winchesters."
John Winchester's sons open the
Yeah.
gate.
Yeah,
Yep,
they're blaming
that's
them.
a really good point.
Oh, I actually like that. And that also is interesting, another angle on family, because like the demons have this sort of like, is it a family? Is it a workplace? But especially the seven. Yeah, they have this like family element of like, we stick together, we're working together.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic that we don't often see with demons, and I really like how it's articulated this episode.
It was a lot more threatening than demons have been in the past. Demons have been, oh, that's like a strong person,
Yeah.
like this one was like, oh, this is like 7 of them and they're all really intense and have okay, hold up.
And like it
And they
gets
can-
real biblical, because they're like,
Mhm.
we are legion, for we are many, and I'm just like, yo, that's literally straight out the Bible.
Yeah, multiple Bible quotes. Also, they have the ability not just to like wreak havoc when they're possessing someone, like through their own self, but they also like can just like touch someone and affect. They have like different powers than we've seen demons have.
So cool.
So that actually brings me to a really good segue about the different deadly sins and how they affect each of the Winchesters, because I know, Abigail, you had a really interesting theory about this.
Maybe not so much a theory, but like I think it's really interesting who goes after who when they get into the house, because the demons kind of all scatter, and we get 2 scenes. We get a scene with Dean and Lust, and we get a scene of Sam and Pride. And I thought like that
Ooh.
parallel in terms of like what we know about these characters and what we know about the end of season 2, how they're being personified and like expressed.
Who goes after Bobby?
There's like 3 or 4 of them that are kind of all there.
The one that stands out though is
I thought it was like-
for negative reasons,
Oh.
The gluttony one, because he makes the whole, fat and stupid is no way to go through life, and I'm like, oh,
Which is
Bobby.
a movie
Unnecessary.
quote, which is also a movie quote. He's quoting a movie.
Oh,
Oh,
really?
I
Not
didn't
that
know
makes it okay, but that is it. It is a quote. I don't remember from what movie. I made a note about it though.
Okay.
We'll come back to it when we talk about pop culture, which is why I didn't really want it. I didn't really take that one into account as much in terms of significance, because I don't think they're doing the same mirroring with that demon and Bobby that they are doing between Sam and Dean and those 2 demons, because
Fair.
yeah, what you started to say, Noah, I think you were going to say something about family dynamics.
Yeah, it's just interesting seeing that Lust goes after Dean, Pride goes after Sam, with their family dynamics, as Dean being the older brother. Sam is kind of not the typically not the typical pride and joy of the family. That's typically the oldest sibling. The second is kind of the first one ignored.
Not in the Winchester family.
Not in the
But-
Winchester family.
But in Sam's experience, like Sam has struggled with a little bit of a like superiority complex sometimes in terms of his own intelligence in the first couple of seasons.
Because his
has
dad put such pressure on ignoring his intelligence and
exactly
not using it to its fullest potential.
Exactly. So Sam responds by
point.
being like, well, I got into Stanford and like I actually care about
People and things and empathize. And
Sam is really, really smart. And we're not saying that like being proud of your accomplishments is like a negative thing, but I think it's
No.
interesting because Sam has this combination of like this sort of righteous rage and this self-righteous rage, and he's kind of always walking the line between those 2 types of rage, and like
And it
pride
actually-
plays right into that.
And it actually does play out, that superiority complex you're talking about does play out in this episode when they're in the thrift store. And he goes up to Dean and he's like, what are you doing? Like, you're just flirting. And then Dean is the one that points out the cameras and he goes, see, I'm working. And it's just this moment where,
Yes.
you know, he's sitting there assuming the worst of Dean and that Dean is only interested in flirting, but he's still doing the job.
It's
Dean is
Yeah.
always doing the job.
They function very differently in the way they interact with hunting, but they're both
Mhm.
really, really skilled hunters. But I think Sam occasionally he misinterprets that and goes for like a bit of a superiority thing. And I think Pride narrows
It's a
in on
really
that.
good point.
Whispering in his ear.
Yeah, and kind of going, you know, like this is going to have a way bigger effect on you to be attacked by this particular demon that's representing all of these things, especially after what's happened at the end of season 2. You know, he almost was he did end up being the last man standing, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
and okay, but also with this is the first, I'm pretty sure this is the first time we get this phrase. This is the first time the demon, like the Pride says, you know, Sam Winchester, the boy king, like he gives him a couple of names. And
Yeah.
it's
Prodigy was
Prodigy,
Yep.
and it's so interesting because even now, even though that demon is now dead, the rest of the demons know there's something about Sam that is
special.
very
And
powerful.
Sam knows that they know it.
Maybe this didn't end with the demon dying.
But on the flip side of Pride going after Sam, Lust thinking that Dean is the best target is fascinating because he puts off such a flirty presence to everybody, as Sam gets frustrated by. But he's always working underneath that. So he's gotten to the point where he can be so detached if he needs to be, while having a good time, clearly, because Jensen Ackles is he's putting a lot into it, you know, but he uses it to get her where he needs her because he probably knows that Lust is going to go after him.
He can play that role, like, and it reminds me of like a couple of scenes in the first season. Like it reminds me of him playing bait for the vampires in Dead Man's Blood, where again he's using this persona, this like flirtatious nature, this like smooth talking to play to his advantage as a hunter. Whether or not that's something we talked, I think, in a little bit in Dead Man's Blood about how much Dean is the bait and how that is a little maybe indicative of some parenting choices that we are not a fan of. But I think it's interesting how Dean has, like, in this episode, flipped that to his advantage. And he's also like, he gets the upper hand. And no, this is no shade to Sam, because like Sam says later on, he's like, there were 4 of them. Sam was not winning that fight.
No.
But Dean manages to get the upper hand on Lust in a way that no one else really does.
Sees coming either.
And she's one of the 2 that lives.
Yeah. And the other one being the one that Bobby.
Interesting thing to note that Bobby and Dean, the ones that came for them, both lived, but all, what was it, 3 or 4 of them? 3 of them.
Well,
I think it was 3 of them.
Oh yeah, it's 3 of them. Yeah, one is unaccounted for.
Yeah, 3 of them.
Wait,
all attack Sam.
No, it just like is it's not shown, but it yeah,
exercised off screen.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, which is also interesting when we're playing out the, like, I think about in the end of season 2, the
Sam fearing that he's a monster.
Well, yeah, and the demon saying to Dean, saying, you know, how sure are you that what you brought back was like 100% pure Sam? There's still this like we've kind of solved the special children arc, but like
not really. We've also only just brushed the surface.
Yeah, we know that Sam has like literal demon blood.
It's gonna have ramifications for later.
Surely.
But yeah, interesting that's the 2 that survive are the other 2 hunters. Get the drop on Gluttony and Lust.
Speaking of, okay, Katie Cassidy showing up as mysterious woman. Did she have a name? Did she say her name?
She does not say her name.
Yeah, she doesn't say it. She just leaves.
Actually, wait, what else is she in? Because
she's in
Arrow.
She's in Arrow.
Oh.
Yeah, she's real good.
I've only ever seen her in this.
They do a good buildup of making her look like one of the demons because, like, oh, it's a known actor, so maybe she'll pop up as the main bad guy like they typically do. And then she comes at that scene, and then they don't acknowledge her at first, but then once they notice her, they're like, oh, wait, hey, you're not supposed to be here. And then she kills them all. It's like, oh, look at that. She's saving his ass.
Yeah. And then she says, see you around. What do you think of her?
I mean, kicks ass and does a better job of it than Bobby even knew was possible.
Who do you think, any ideas of who she is, what she is, why she's there? Why is she there?
To protect them for a
Why?
future event. She really needs someone to do the ultimate backflip, and it has yet to happen in the show.
Just to come bring it full circle to your prediction at the end of season 2.
Yeah, so maybe that's what she needs them for. She needs them both alive until they learn how to do a backflip.
Solid theory.
No, I honestly didn't know she was in the show. I don't remember. There might be a scene that pops up later on, and I'll be like, oh yeah, but I didn't remember her being a big character in the show, at least. But I'm excited for it, and I'm nervous to see where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to point out the note in this doc that is all caps, and it just says, why are demons so sleazy?
The personification of demons as real sleazy continues in this episode. It's my least favorite personification for demons.
I hate it.
We've had that when we had with Meg, like every time we've had Meg.
Yep.
We have it with the yellow-eyed demon a little bit, not as much. He's probably honestly the least. We have it with, so we're just getting this personification of demons as, yes, they are intelligent, but mostly they're just creepy.
Yeah.
They don't use their intelligence in nice ways.
No.
They're able to know like so much about everyone around them, but they just,
their tactics are always the same.
Yeah, they just are like, oh, maybe if I flirt with them, they will do what I would
if
like.
I flirt, but in a creepy, assaulty way. Like,
Yeah.
I'm tired of it. Give me more interesting demon interactions, please.
Thank you. Amen.
And thank you. More interesting politics of demons, because I think that stuff is interesting. These
Politics
guys have all
of
just
demons
crawled
is
out of hell.
fascinating.
Yeah, and these have all just crawled out of hell. They've been in hell since the Middle Ages.
Which is also okay. We're gonna come back to that more. Never mind. I thought that was
okay, I'm gonna make one note. So go for it.
I thought it was really interesting that they mentioned at the beginning that it's only been like 5 days since the gate opened and all that.
Yeah.
By the end of it, it's been another week, but 5 days is not that long. It's like just a few days ago, and they're trying to go find all these demons right now. And I mean, they find 7 pretty fast, but there's still like 200 left. So
yeah,
go ahead.
It's also like a really interesting example of like raising the stakes, because it's almost like, yes, a lot happens in this episode, but it's also a little bit of a lull where we just don't know the ramifications of opening the Devil's Gate. We know there are a lot of demons out, but we don't really know how bad that means things are.
Yeah.
Like obviously big bad guy, they've let big bad guys out, but like
how many people are they hurting?
Like, did the big bad guys make it all the way to like Africa and Asia, or are they just local?
Well, do they have a plan? Or are they just going to wreak havoc? Like, does this mean you have a lot more to deal with? Or does this mean, because the demon had said that he wanted to raise an army. So like what, but he's now dead. So is that still happening? What is happening? Like and they're doing a really good job in this episode of like raising those stakes, where everything feels a little bit like, okay, we managed to stop these 7. But like
they tease it
can we
really
win?
Well at the end, because when he asks Bobby, he's like, do you think we can win this war? And Bobby doesn't answer him, which first of all, good on Bobby for actually being honest with the boys.
Yes.
Like that would have been a moment where John was like, well, we're gonna do it no matter what we gotta do, even if it means we're gonna die. And like
which might have been true, but real depressing.
But Bobby's just, I'll catch you on the next one. And it's just
also Bobby is like committing to being there. He's going, you keep in touch, I'll keep in touch, let's communicate,
something John does not do.
No, John fucks off whenever there's something going on and is like, maybe I'll call you, maybe I won't.
And I probably won't.
Won't. Bobby, well, like one of my notes was that like Bobby knows the damn stakes and does not mess around with them. He refused. Also, Bobby refuses to be like reckless and suicidal in the way that he hunts. Like Bobby, unlike John and unlike Dean in this episode, because Dean also has some moments of being like recklessly suicidal.
Yep.
Bobby refuses to do that. Bobby is going for longevity as a hunter, not like self-sacrifice, which is I really, really appreciate.
And it's something that I think the boys really desperately need. Like that's an influence that they just like the amount of therapy that they get for free from Bobby. He really
honestly, he is probably breaking down so many walls for them.
And he just keeps doing it.
They trust him. They communicate with him, and like they listen to him. Like when Dean's like, yeah, I'll go and take them all on. I'll buy you some time. And they're like, Bobby's like, that you'll literally be dead. That's stupid. We're not doing that. He listens. Like there's other times when he like doesn't listen. If it was Sam, maybe he wouldn't have listened. But like he listens to Bobby. Bobby's his dad.
Mm-hmm.
My feelings
feels better than John.
This is just entirely a one-off note that has mostly nothing to do with everything, but it's just something funny I noticed about this episode. I don't know why, but I feel like in this show, all the bad things happen in Illinois. Like, just like this
is actually true. Now that I'm thinking about it,
because this isn't really a spoiler, Noah, but a fact about the season 4's premiere also takes place in Illinois. And crazy shit goes down. And so I don't know. I just thought, and when it showed it on the screen that it was like outside of, like the suburbs of Chicago, I was just like, damn, what did Illinois do to piss off Eric Kripke? Because he just
that's where he grew up.
That's a lot of
I don't know. So that's just my funny one-off aside that I had about just bad things happening in Illinois.
Not a good state for them.
They need to avoid those borders.
When Sam calls Dean out for doing the same thing that John did for Dean, and he says it's so selfish of you, and Dean responds with, after everything I've done for this family, I feel like I'm entitled to be. Is gorgeous acting by Jensen. Does so good.
It's a beautiful moment, and Jensen does this a lot with Dean, and it's just such a good character trait of his. This consistency with like Dean owns all of his shit. Like he knows.
He's not usually great at that, but in this episode he really is.
Yeah, he's very much like cards on
the table.
Yeah,
cards on the table. Exactly.
He's in rare form this episode.
Yeah, he answers like Sam sometimes doesn't realize that how honest he's being in his answers, and he's being very like blasé about him. Like Bobby says, why are you eating burgers in the morning? And he goes, sold my soul, you're to live, ain't sweating the cholesterol. Like he's turning all of his truth into jokes to protect the feelings of his family and to protect his own feelings and his own like fear.
It's giving Chandler from Friends.
Yeah.
I disguise everything with a quip.
Yeah, and he like literally this whole episode is him disguising his feelings, like because we know he's got feelings about it, but none of them come through in this episode until like at the very end, and even then, it's mostly him just being like he's owning it. He's going, yeah, I know it's selfish. I think I've earned that, and like I couldn't let you die. It's the most honest that he's been with Sam.
Does not regret it for a second.
Yeah, he says it with such conviction, like I couldn't live without you.
And he knows that that's about him. He knows that that's about his own trauma. He knows that it's coming from his own experience with John. He knows that. He knows that the connection is there.
Well, because as it stands up to this point in the series, Sam has never had to lose Dean. Not really. He's never like Dean has never died on him.
Well, and I mean, Faith was pretty dicey.
Yeah, but he hasn't actually lost his brother.
That's true.
But at the end of season 2, Dean actually loses Sam. Before he goes and makes that deal, he was having to reckon with the possibility of this being unfixable, and the fact that he had let his brother down and his brother was dead. Like he's after coming off of that and the fact that Sam is alive again, I think he's very much, because it's still so close to when the event happened, he's very much just in like, I'm just glad my brother's alive. I don't care about anything else.
Yeah.
Like, because he knows what a dark place he was in before he made that deal.
And it's like a 180 flip from last episode. And he even says like what he's doing. He's like, yeah, I've got a year to live. I am gonna make the most of it. He says that twice in this episode. And basically he's just like hitting on everything that moves. But he's also talking about the fact that he's going to die a lot. It's always a joke, but he talks about it a lot.
Yeah.
But when he says he's making the most of it, he says it twice. The first time he's talking about living life up, eating the burgers, making out with some hot people. But the second time he's talking about hanging out with Sam and spending time doing the family business.
Oh.
Hunting.
Yeah.
And he's talking about being relieved too, where he's going, I don't have, you know, hunting, and their whole family lives have been like this endless experience of risk, of not knowing if tomorrow's hunt is the one that's going to get you killed. And he's like, now it doesn't matter. He's like, now it doesn't matter. He's like, hopefully I live out my year, but if I don't, like, it ultimately doesn't matter. I'm dying anyway. And it's that's fueling his like, I think that's fueling both his honesty and his like recklessness. We're going to see this whole season, his kind of processing of like the repercussions of having to live for a year with this demon deal hanging over him. But in this episode, it's coming out in humor and sort of like a devil may care attitude, which is just really interesting.
Well, and a parallel that I noticed just as you were talking about that whole, when he says, you know, Sam, I'm tired. The first time we hear him say that is, I'm pretty sure is it in Faith? If not Faith,
he's like
definite. Yeah, if not Faith, he definitely mentions it in Croatoan.
It's Croatoan. They have a whole conversation about him being like, I'm tired of this job and this life.
And that's the part that really gets me about going back to these early seasons, because like seeing season 2 Dean say, I'm tired, Sam, and then knowing this poor boy's got 13 more years of show to live through, it's just brutal.
Buddy, you're gonna cry so much more, bud.
Yeah, I'm like, this is,
it's like that moment from Avatar when Zuko's just like, that's rough, buddy.
That's rough, buddy. Yeah. I think we should also talk about that scene from Sam's perspective, because all episodes Sam is like on Dean's case. He's like, I'm doing research to try and figure out how to get
is so depressed.
He's like, why aren't you taking any of this seriously, Dean? Like, why are you just like off and like hooking up with anything that moves? What is going on? Why don't you care about the fact that you're going to literally die? He's like the weight of, you know, Dean has carried the weight of like protecting Sam for so long. And now in some ways that job is done for Dean. Like, yes, he still wants to protect Sam in this year that he's got left, but ultimately he's like, that responsibility is not weighing on him the same right now.
No.
But it is weighing on Sam for the first time ever, aside from in Faith and in 201. But those were both very brief instances. Whereas now, like, the weight of Dean's fate and like not just like his life or death, but also of like his destiny in hell is weighing on Sam.
Yeah, because I'm sure Sam would feel very differently if Dean were to just die on a hunt and he could know that, like, you know, oh, well, Dean's in a better place or whatever the fuck. But he doesn't know that as of this point. He knows that if his brother dies at any point in the next year, like if he dies before it or if he dies because of it, he's gonna go to hell. And he doesn't want that for his brother.
Where their dad was and where it's horrible. You know, like Sam is like super burdened by that. And Dean is like, Dean is not appearing to give a shit. It's the return of Angry Sam. Get a lot of Angry Sam in the other seasons, but it doesn't have quite the same fire as other times.
It's sadder this time.
It's sad. Yeah, it's a little more. Yeah, it's sadder.
He feels cheated, for sure.
Yeah, he calls Dean a hypocrite, and I think it's because he's feeling like, again, the control over his own life has been sort of wrenched from him.
Yeah.
And it's the only like really stable thing in his life is now like
called into question.
Yeah, and is like, well, and is unless they find a way out, the only stable thing in his life is going to be pulled out from under him in a year.
Well, I think it's also important that we do this is the first time where Dean tells Sam that there is no way out of this deal. he doesn't say that to him in the previous episode, I think because it's still so fresh and so new and everything just happened. Like they had a lot of other shit to worry about at the time. But, you know, Dean finally saying that to him, like, I don't want a way out of this deal, because if there's a way out, it's going to kill you. And I won't allow that to happen.
And it's season 2. He had the secret from John that he held for like half the season without telling Sam. Whereas this time he's telling Sam right away because Sam's at risk if he doesn't. And he's like, I don't want you to go off and like find some way out of this.
Yeah. Because it's like Sam goes off on his own, finds some cure, and then the next thing he knows, he doesn't hear from Sam for several days because his brother has dropped dead because he found a way out.
Yeah. It's
a lot.
It's a lot.
This episode.
It's a lot. Maybe one last thought about family as we're going forward into the rest of this season. Like, this is another challenge to their family. Is now at the beginning of season 2, the question was this mystery about Sam's identity and the grieving of their family unit changing. And this season is like starting with their family unit changing
stronger.
Yeah, but like it's not happening yet. There's time. It's just time. They know what's going to happen, but it's just time.
Yeah, this episode does a very good job of setting the stage for what the arc is going to be of the season. Like that's one of the reasons I think I enjoy season 3 so much, is because it is such a solidly constructed arc. And you go into the season knowing what the problem of the season is going to be, and you get a resolution to that by the end of it, a very definite resolution to it. And so it's just done really well, but I think it all ties back into how this season overall is so much about family.
Yeah.
Honestly, it could have been the name of the show.
You're not wrong.
It's a perfect segue to move into our going meta section. We're going to be tracking lore, the Bechdel test, pop culture, and more. We'll start with the Bechdel test.
Listen. So here's what happens.
Anytime we have to update the Bechdel test and we have to say listen, never ending well.
So on a technicality, we do not pass. Only because the two women that speak, they don't speak about a man, but they are both unnamed.
They're both unnamed.
So, but they do have a conversation, and the conversation they have is about shoes.
But the thing is,
they have the conversation because a man comes up and touches
her
and propels her to kill another woman over a pair of shoes.
Yeah,
so it really doesn't pass.
In the basement.
It's really it's not even like if they were named, it would technically pass, but it would be missing the spirit of the thing.
Exactly. And so it does not pass, but it tried, but it's like the personification of that meme where it's like a really badly drawn gold star and it says in Comic Sans you tried. Like that's how well it passes.
Except that I don't feel like
they did.
They didn't try.
They tried.
No, that's why it's written in Comic Sans, because it's not real.
Yeah.
I was really disappointed because like for a hot second I was like, oh my god, like look, there's two women and they're talking to each other, and then I was like, god damn it, the topic and the reason for it are terrible, and one of them proceeds to die.
And then the other one proceeds to get no other screen time. Like we don't even get a conversation. We don't get a conversation. We get like they talk about like Dean obviously goes and has a conversation with her and then tells Sam and Bobby about it, but they don't actually show that. The only other like and Tamara and then the unnamed character that saves Sam, those are both fantastic female characters.
Yeah, but they don't get a chance to interact with each other or with other women.
And we're so that's Bechdel test. So get this. I was looking into the lore.
What'd you find when you looked into the lore?
First up, we have a knife that can kill demons.
Its introduction is so awesome.
Honestly, so great. Not only because of how it's used and how quickly it puts them down, but the fact that Bobby had no idea that it was even a possibility is what really makes it most impressive.
Well, yeah, because there
Bobby
were
knows his
multiple.
shit.
Well, exactly. There have been multiple times with John where John didn't know something, but you're like, you routinely don't know important things. Whereas with
Yeah.
Bobby, like Bobby routinely Bobby has done his research, and like Bobby's expertise is his research. Like Bobby, like almost every time we've seen Bobby, his primary role has not been the like hands-on fighting. It's been the research.
And he kills it at that. He goes above and beyond in every single way.
Yeah, even in this episode, he does the exercising, which like
Yeah, all night.
yeah, like man, you couldn't. I don't also like other. I don't know. Sam also knows how to do exorcisms. Actually, pretty sure so does Dean at this point. Why did Bobby do them all by himself? Also, it never takes that long. Like,
How long was he exercising?
how long was he exercising? I'm confused about that. What were you gonna say
Nap
though,
in
Noah,
between.
about Bobby? You were gonna say
Because
something about
Tamara
Bobby.
is pretty quick.
Everyone we've seen in the show so far has been quick, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense that suddenly it took all night. Maybe he's just referring to the fact that it was like this
Exhausting.
battle kind of was all, maybe the battle was kind of all night, and it just, between
They
that and the
probably
digging the
waited up.
graves, dragging the graves out to somewhere they could bury. I don't know.
That's a whole lot. It's a whole lot of effort to put in.
And making sure that the two people that didn't die got to the hospital to get checked out, where he jokes that they're going to have years of therapy to go to.
Yeah.
Yes.
When Bobby and Dean make contact after the werewolf incident in Hart, and he says something along the lines of, I could have told you that erasing the bloodline wouldn't have worked, like something along that. Like, he knows what he's talking about. Bobby's got precedent for knowing a lot of supernatural knowledge. So if he doesn't even know that there's a type of metal out there that can kill demons, then that's some shit that's impressive and needs to be explored.
The other thing we see that's new is the wooden spikes that Isaac and Tamara use, which is holy wood from Peru. So they say it's toxic like holy water. And basically it's, you can stab a demon and hold them down while you're exercising them. It's not
such a cool concept.
very cool.
And
It's
honestly, could go in the Lost Cannon jar, because I don't think they ever mention Palo Santo ever again.
no, that's true. They do not. Which
That's
is
tragic.
yeah. They usually, because I think they just sort of decide that they're going to use like holy water instead, but
Yeah.
like without like. But it seems like there are situations where a stake would
Or an
be
arrow.
Well, it would come in clutch if you don't have a devil's trap, because you just stake them to the wall and they can't.
An arrow would be fantastic. I'm thinking about like in Dead Man's Blood when they use the crossbows dipped in Dead Man's Blood to like stun vampires, like something like that, but for demons.
Yeah.
Bring back the crossbows. I honestly, the fact that they use crossbows like one time, it's like a real big thing, and then they
crossbows
never
are
do it again.
so fucking
So
cool.
They're my
effective.
favorite freaking weapon.
Oh
That
my
was a lost cannon.
God.
That was lost cannon. They're like, Sam and Dean know how to use crossbows, but we'll never mention it again.
Yep.
I really love when they do the devil's trap in the trunk of the car.
Yeah.
such a
And
such
the
a
demon just screams.
such
like,
a bad
"No!"
bitch move. Just boom. You think you can't get
gonna become just a thing. That's not lost cannon. That's just lore now. They're
Oh,
just,
yeah.
This is just
There are many more. We could have an entire counter for times demons are in the trunk, and it would have a lot of entries.
hell yeah. Anything else for lore check for this episode?
I mean, 7 deadly sins are obviously more powerful than kind of your average demon. It kind of goes along with what we've learned about demons, that there seems to be different ranks, different abilities depending on their status.
I appreciated how spooky they were, though, because like
scary.
especially as we get into later seasons, like some of the fear factor wears off a little bit and it just becomes more normal. But that, I remember when I watched that for the first time, I was like, yo,
Well,
these demons are fucking scary.
well, especially since like up to this point, until we get this knife, like they don't have a way of killing demons. They only exercise them. So it's like, demons are pretty scary. And these demons are interesting too because they're really specific. Like they're not only are they just like demons, but they're also like have these very specific, the character traits of envy and gluttony and lust and pride, which seems to give them specific abilities that are, they're scary. I do want to say one thing, because I can't not say it with this episode. This episode does contain one of my least favorite moments in the entire show. And that is like one of the ones like from a physical
Wait,
I have a
wonder if
physical
it's-
visceral reaction to, and I just can't watch. Like I cannot watch it. I had to I watched this episode twice before recording, and I had to skip over it because I was like, I can't.
I wonder if it's the same thing that I have.
It's the bleach scene.
Yeah.
Yep.
The bleach scene is, I find it incredibly hard to watch. I don't know why it's there. I don't know why it's as graphic as it is. It's also just because it's a black character, and it's so unnecessary.
Yeah.
And it's such a problem.
It's
and it's so
pleasant.
long. It's such a long scene. Like
they really draw it out absolutely unnecessarily.
Way too long.
Like they have major characters that are killed off with like less fanfare.
With a flick of the wrist.
Yeah.
It's like that's a gratuitous, it's a gratuitous death.
Yeah.
And we didn't need it to show.
It establishes the 7 deadly sins as scary and really like traumatizing. Like
and the fact that they laugh.
Yeah,
is
they're a
really
threat.
Fucking scary.
It's really fucking scary. It's one of the worst scenes.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. And I remember thinking that as I was watching it, I was like, this is like top worst like moments in the show.
I realized one of the reasons I don't rewatch this episode, and I haven't seen this episode as much as I've seen other series like season premieres, is because of that scene. I have seen this episode because of that scene, and
it's abysmal.
Yeah. So I just needed to say that.
Absolutely.
Glad you did, because I felt that.
Yeah. I think that's lore. That's kind of all the
lore knocked out. Moving on to Lost Cannon Jar. We kind of mentioned a few things that went into this.
So the only thing here, obviously the Holy Wood, but also like the book that Bobby refers to, where that's connected to the 7 deadly sins, where he learns about them. In that book, each of the 7 deadly sins are actually associated with individual like demons. And some of those demons that they're associated with are Lucifer, Asmodeus, Leviathan, Mammon, Beelzebub, Satan, and Belphegor, which is just really interesting. And is lost canon in the sense that there are a couple of these, at least a couple of these, I'm not going to say which ones for Noah's sake, but there are a couple of these that I just listed that are actually going to show up as characters later. So it's not specifically lost canon, but I did think it was interesting. I did get that information originally from one of the Supernatural wikis.
I did not know that was the names of all of them, and looking at that is a grab bag of later season villains if I've ever seen one.
It's an interesting point there that I thought was kind of fun.
Interesting. Good to know that they'll never make note of it.
Yeah, it's lost canon in the sense that they're like, these 7 deadly sins are just gone. They're just gone.
And they took care of them.
So we have a lot of pop culture references
oh my God.
for this episode.
I looked it up. I went and looked it up because I look at the wikis so that I don't miss ones that I didn't notice during the episode. And I came up with like an entire page and a half full of references. So we're not going to go over them all. We're just going to kind of go over some of our favorites. It's funny because usually pop culture heavy episodes are also quite funny episodes, and this episode is not funny. It's just very pop culture heavy.
Honestly.
I have to point out that you noted apparently Jim Beaver was in the original Dallas show, which I never knew until just now.
I didn't either. That's a Supernatural wiki fact of the day.
That's impressive. I really liked the I Love You, I Know, being a very subtle Star Wars.
Isaac and look, we didn't talk very much about Isaac and Tamara as
because
a relationship.
They were tragically underappreciated in the show.
Yeah. But they are, I love their connection, and the fact that they use that reference about their relationship, it lends more like sadness and sorrow to the fact that what happens to them.
Yeah.
Breaks my heart every fucking time.
And also like Isaac makes a Scooby-Doo reference.
Yep.
Yeah.
There we go. We got another one.
Others.
Oh, good. The what's in the box.
That sends me every time because I'm like, Dean, sweetie, time and place.
He does so good at it too.
Half of these things are Dean making inappropriate references at inappropriate times, or also the Simpsons reference that Sam makes. when Bobby asks, "Where's your brother?" and Sam says, "Polling the electorate." I mostly appreciate it because of Jared's delivery of that line. Is so
That line
annoyed.
is
It's
so
so
funny.
annoyed.
So frustrated. He's so done with it.
He's like,
Oh my-
we've been here for. He's like, it's been 5 days, and like, this is all Dean wants to do. Just like, he's just hooking up with people. It's
What's funny is I actually didn't know that reference, but it always has made me laugh, and so now it's even like I feel like I'm gonna enjoy that line even more now, knowing it's from The Simpsons.
yeah. So Sam, it's a pop culture reference from Sam as well, which we don't get. We get some, but we don't get as many yet. We get more like history references and like news related references from Sam, whereas this one's just like a Simpsons. This is a TV reference from him.
One thing I thought was interesting, we're talking pop culture. The 7 deadly sins, they've been in hell since the Middle Ages, right?
Mhm.
That's what they established, and they just got out 5 days ago.
Yeah.
And then this motherfucker makes a Shining reference.
I noticed that too, but I was able to excuse it away because when a demon possesses you, they typically tend to
okay.
like
They root
absorb
around
all
in
your
there.
info.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
They're
that
very
did
invasive.
bother me as I was
I was
watching.
like,
I was like,
Okay.
I would have liked for them to have played into that more. The fact that they're from the Middle Ages, like
would've
what
been
if
so
like, what
much
if they had
better.
what if they had, you know, they haven't been out for very long. What if they were just a little bit off? Just a little
Yeah.
bit off. Like they're kind of making correct, you know, they're making references, but they're not quite right. Or they're
Yeah.
it would have been funny. It would have been funny to have demons that are like, oh,
Out of time.
yeah,
Ah.
exactly. A missed opportunity to be humorous in this episode.
Nope. They went heavy.
There are 2 biblical references. Elayna, you mentioned them earlier. One of them is about the "I am Legion, for we are many," which is a reference specifically to like demons in the Bible. But the other one's really interesting because it's like Envy speaking to Sam and Dean. Speaking to Sam and Dean and Tamara and Bobby, and specifically addressing Dean and Tamara, and says, "Which one of you can cast the first stone?" Which is from a story about Jesus defending a woman being accused from adultery. And he, you know, asking her accusers who, you know, he who's without sin can cast the first stone. And Envy uses that to be like, who are you to judge us for our actions? You know, Dean, you're a walking billboard of gluttony and lust. And then for Tamara, he says, you know, all that wrath. It's interesting. I don't have anything to say about it. It's just interesting. It's a interesting and I think pretty effective use of like a biblical reference.
a very well placed reference. Yeah.
Well done, Kripke.
Kripke's religious like references are going to start getting more regular. And I think they're going to add some other
They really
That's
settle
an
on a religion.
That's an understatement.
Look, I'm trying to not spoil things for now. I'm trying
I
to gently
appreciate
hint
it.
at things.
You have so much more restraint than I do.
No, it's just because I want to be here when Noah's
Keep
like,
me honest.
that's what's happening.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to experience you experiencing it.
I'm so excited. It's going to be so good. But as far as pop culture goes, I think that was most of them.
Yeah.
It's all the ones we wanted to
I
talk
have
about.
so many things to say about Gaydar.
Okay, so that's a great segue. So Gaydar, and so in this section, we talk about sexuality, we talk about gender, we also talk about relationship dynamics. This is not specifically just these are moments where we're seeing gay character, like queer characters or queer coding or queer baiting. This is also just our opportunity to talk about
The dynamics.
a wide variety of like gender and sexuality dynamics and how they're playing out in the show. This is our opportunity also, like we are called Saving People Queering Things for a reason. We're looking for queer narratives, and even when they're not explicit, we're looking for queer themes. So with that framing, wanted to restate that as we're going into this new season.
Absolutely.
I have 2 points. The first is a quicker one. The second one is probably going to be discussed a bit more. So the first one, I hate the fact that, you know, just 2 episodes ago, we had our first explicitly queer character, and then she immediately gets killed off. And then 2 episodes later, we have, you know, the personification of lust. And she happens to be a woman who is making comments about how attractive she finds another woman. And it does not sit well with me to have like the personification of demonic lust be like a woman being interested in another woman. And like, Isaac says to her, like, keep your filthy hands off her or whatever. And did we have to villainize queerness so blatantly?
And like specifically specifically this is a female vessel. Demons and gender we don't really know a lot about, but it's a female vessel, like, which is a show choice to demonize specifically queerness as it relates to female characters, which is particularly egregious. Honestly, it's gross and it's uncomfortable, and it's not doing anything interesting in the way it's exploring lust. It's
not bringing anything to the story. It's not something we needed.
I think it's really important that you pointed that out, Elayna, because it is, especially in these early seasons, the way the show portrays any indication of queerness is negative.
They portray it as a negative in any sort of way. They've had them be villains. They've had them be victims. They've had them be not the hero.
No, it's largely predatory as well, specifically, and that's the example here too. Like, it's seen as predatory, it's seen as threatening, it's seen as outside of the norm, and it's seen as like grounds for like jokes.
Yeah.
The only exception being Lily, and then Lily has all her agency taken away in the narrative by being killed. And also, like, even in her narrative, she accidentally kills other people. So like the picture they're painting about queerness is such a negative one in this first.
No matter what, there's harm caused to someone.
Yeah, and it's usually it's harm directly connected to
your queerness, but it's not. It's demons, or it's vampires, or it's shit that.
Yeah, but it's sucky in terms of like the way they're representing it and the way they're drawing that narrative.
As far as gaydar goes, they kind of put a little bit of a slut shame sticker on Dean this episode.
Just a little
did, though.
And not just by other by like other primary characters like Sam and Bobby.
Yeah, Sam, Bobby, the lust demons, Dean himself, by assuming that lust is going to come for him, realizes that he's having a slutty phase, and he's okay with that. He's on board.
He's in his thought era right now.
Yeah. Go off, queen.
Yeah.
He's having a great time. Like all of the instances in this episode seem to be very consensual and let the man do what he wants. Let him enjoy himself.
The way that the car like goes over a bump like right after the Sam being like, can I gouge my eyes out, please? But that actually reminds me of the other point that I was going to make about Dean and lust that I thought was really interesting. So you kind of get this sense, like, from the way that their powers work in this episode, these demons, that like, if they touch you and like, they tell you to do something, then you have to do it. Like Isaac chugs the bleach, the woman kills the lady for the shoes. And so I love the way that Dean seems to be falling victim to that, because she touches his arm and he suddenly is like, oh, pretty lady, and they start kissing. But the fact that he was not under the spell, that he was able to brush that off and still be able to save the girl, to me is like, I want to know what, like, Eric Kripke, I just want to talk. I want to know the reason, because it doesn't get addressed that he doesn't.
No. Why is he able to resist that?
Yeah, and I think that there's implications. I don't know what they are, but it's what I'd ask Eric Kripke if I had a chance to get a drink with the man.
Next is our episode mixtape. What do we have to add for this first episode of season 3?
Okay, I've got Infamous by The Fame, a lovely Australian band who I've seen in concert many times. They're phenomenal. Love them so much. But this song it's gorgeous. It's about being infamous in that no matter what goes on in the real world and life and how it moves on, as long as all of your thoughts are all focused on how powerful you are, you'll always be infamous, because if you're here now with me together, we can get through it no matter what.
Nice.
Powerful
Love that.
for
Nice.
Dean trying to help Sam move on.
For my mixtape offering, I tend to like to pick my mixtape choices from like stuff that I'm currently listening to, like what is on my recent playlist. And for me, the thing that I've listened to recently that totally just stands out as like being this episode is Demons by Haley Kiyoko. That's just a really catchy song, and it's got a very like, it was used in an episode of Loki actually.
Nice.
And that was where I first heard it. It's probably just a popular song and they happened to use it, but that was where I first heard it. And it's got some lyrics that I think could definitely lend themselves to being related to this episode and all of the demons that have broken loose.
I'm going to go with Luck by American Authors. It has this line that goes, I am my own man, I make my own luck. And it's a very like upbeat sort of song. I just think I'm choosing it based on vibes, honestly, this episode. So yeah, that's my offering this week.
Hell yeah.
So to wrap up this week, we have our personal favorite, our blessings section. And I think that we have some really good candidates for it this week. Abigail, you want to start us off with your blessing?
Yeah, so my blessing is for Tamara. This episode is really tragic for her. For an episode, we got the first example of like a hunter couple who work so well together, who seem so in sync, who seem like they've taken a really tragic thing in their family and turned it into something where they are hunting to save other people, is really beautiful. And Tamara sees all these awful things happening to her one remaining family member in this episode, and then at the end she leaves on her own, and it's really, really
We
sad.
never get
and
a
like,
resolution to that.
and like we can only hope that she found other people to be supports and family to her. But I wanted to bless her for what happens next, because we don't have an answer for that, and I hope that she feels like she could have called Bobby if she needed it. I hope that she had other people she could have gone to in her grief and her loss.
Continuing to hunt.
Yeah.
Maybe Tamara is the one who found peace when she was done.
I hope so.
Nobody else did.
I hope so. So that's my blessing for Tamara this week.
Lovely.
Poetry snaps to that.
I would love to bless Bobby, because Bobby, he did so good this episode. He adopted 2 fully grown boys officially. He's been fostering for a while, but now he finally signed the papers and exorcised all the demons while they slept. So that's as official as it gets in the hunting world.
No, I can't tell you why the sentence you just said broke me at every level, but Abigail knows.
It's
If you know, you know.
He needs
and
more support.
you'll know in a couple years.
He needs the blessing, because now he's responsible for these two jokers. Oh my god.
Like this seems like a real job for Bobby.
Yeah.
Like they may be grown, but they are more work than most children.
Yeah, more work than most actual children, for sure. I just think he needs all the blessings he can get, and I'm so proud of him for everything he did this episode. And he's gonna do even
the
better
empathy that he held on to, and
the whole
just
time.
the absolute heartbreak of after he like yells at Tamara, but then he still adds that last part where he's just like, I am sorry for your loss.
Mhm.
And I just, to me, that part was
Such a
so
good-
heartbreaking, because you could tell that he regrets yelling at her, and he wishes
He's got
that this
compassion
wasn't the
for
case.
her. He's trying to make sure no one else dies, but he is also able to still recognize that she deserves care in that moment, and she deserves even if like he can't offer care, he can offer acknowledgement of her pain.
That she's going through some shit that's not.
And he does it
fun.
so immediately after
Yes.
an action that is you know, it's like he was right in what he was saying, but the delivery was too harsh, and he recognized that immediately.
Yeah.
Unlike certain
Really good
other
point.
parental figures in this
Mhm.
franchise, but it's fine.
It's fine.
We started and ended with John hate, so you know,
Yeah, it's good.
it
Gotta
all
get our
came full
quota.
circle.
Our
It's a good
quota.
episode in my book.
Yeah, that is all we have for today. So if you have been riding along with us through season 2, thank you so much. We are so happy that you're here. And if you're a new listener, we're excited to have you for season 3. We got a lot of shenanigans coming your way, everyone.
That we do. So you can make sure that you are subscribed to Saving People Queering Things wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love to hear from you. So if you have a blessing you would like to give to a character or a theme you'd love to see us explore, you can leave us an email or a voicemail at queeringthingspodcast.com.
You can also follow us on TikTok and Instagram, where we're at Queering Things Pod, and on Twitter at Queering_things. You can also chat with hosts and fellow listeners on our Discord server. Links to all of that are going to be in the show notes and on our website.
Be sure to ride along with us next week as we meet a kid with suspiciously Dean-like personality traits in season 3, episode 2, The Kids Are All Right, through the theme of vacation.
Thank you all for coming along for the ride, and we wish you a peaceful road until we meet again.